Hi guys, Jessica here from Graffiti Groomers. This is Jessie. Is it Sharper Edges okay?
Sharp edges.
Sharp Edges okay .com.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys. Hey, so we're here. We're gonna do some questions, and he's gonna show us some blade care and how to change some blade drives. I'm gonna let him take over, and I'll read the questions to him as you guys have them. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hi guys, Jessica mentioned my name is Jessie. I'm with Sharp Edges here in Oklahoma. SharpEdgesOK.com if you want to look at my goofy website. So today I thought we would talk about some blade care and maintenance and some scissor care and maintenance. I'm here to answer any questions you have. And so that I don't get lost in what I'm doing, I have made a little list of topics to go over. The first we'll go with is the most common question, and the number one thing you can do to extend the life of your clipper blades and go the longest you can between sharpenings and get the best results from your clipper blade, and that's oiling, or as my friend Tyler likes to say, oil, oil, oil. If you guys on Facebook will catch that. So here we have a clipper blade. This is the number 10 clipper blade, and people ask me, how often should you oil? Andis recommends every 10 minutes of continuous use. I know that's a little unrealistic in most cases, but what I tell everybody is at least between grooms, when you pick up a blade to groom a new dog with, most people I've encountered, I asked them why they don't oil, and it's because they've been using these bottles, these Andis bottles for oil. And when you use these bottles to oil, it dumps a gallon of oil on your blades, and then that gets all over the dogs. And so a lot of people don't like to use that. I like to use needle tip drippers like this. You can order these on Amazon or pick them up at Hobby Lobby. All my customers get a care of my patented blade juice, which is just mineral oil and H42. Now, they say technically the proper way, they have the 5 or 6 points of oiling, and that is on their blade here, put 1, 2, 3 drops across the blade. They'll tell you to push out one side, and then put a couple drops here, then slide it over to the other side and put a couple drops here, then put a drop here on the blade guide, this little plastic thing here on top of the blade, then put one on each of the back rail. You can't see that. One on each of the back rails. That's the 6 points of oiling. Let's face it. Yeah. Well,
no idea that's all the places you're supposed to
go. Yeah, there's 6 points you're supposed to oil it technically. But you know, if you're a busy groomer, you're doing 6 to 12 dogs a day, and you're in a hurry. You got the clients are calling you asking when the dog's going to be ready, and I get it. So the easiest way, and the easiest and best way to oil is little and often. What I tell everybody, between each dog, if you take a bottle like this that has just a little bitty tip there on the top, if you will just take this and put one drop right in the middle of your teeth right there, one drop on the back blade rail, the back rail of the blade. You can see, I know this is horrible in this camera probably, but you'll put just those 3 points, then let it run for a second, and take a towel and wipe it. You'll get off any excess.
I normally just put it like right here,
right here, but right there on the top, that's the cutting surface. Right here on the top, that's the cutting surface. So you want to put just a drop of oil there between grooms. Will extend the life of your blade. It'll help it run cooler. And it won't allow for the buildup of the excess heat when you're going through coats. You're burning dander, and especially if you're using that cool lube. Cool lube can cool your blade down when it's hot, and it can help you clean it. It is not a lubricant. It even says right here on the can to oil your blades after you use this. This is fine to use as long as you're following it up with oil. A lot of times when I get blades back, and you guys have seen it, some of your blades will have, between the teeth here, we'll have some red buildup, red colored buildup between there. That's caused between a common, it's burnt dander, basically. Burnt dander and residue from Cool Care. Yeah.
The Miller asked if Sprite oil was any good.
Sprite oil?
Spray oil.
Spray oil.
Sorry, I got my nose is all jazzed
up
right now.
Spray oil that comes in the form of a spray, if I'm reading that correctly, would be fine. My only concern with that is that it would get everywhere. And then we're back to why people don't use this Andis oil bottle, because it makes a mess everywhere. That's fine if you're willing to wipe off all the excess so you don't get it in the dog's fur. That's the number one reason when I talk to groomers that they say that they don't use oil more often is because it gets in the dog's fur. So I tell everybody put just a little bit between your grooms will extend the life of your blades. A lot of times when I get blades in to sharpen, it's not so much that the steel has gone dull as it is that it's got that built up residue between the blade from the burnt dander, so the teeth aren't seated properly, and it's more they just need a real good cleaning than they do a sharpening. Unfortunately, by the time it's baked on that hard, it has to be sharpened to get it off. You know. Somebody's question.
Yep. What's H42?
H42. It's a product that is antiviral, antibacterial, and a lubricant. It's 100% water-free. We actually did a test where we left the number 10 blade and a 5-in-1 blade, sitting it for a month. No corrosion, no damage whatsoever. It's really good cleaner because it disinfects and it leaves a thin film of oil on it after you use it. So that's what I recommend cleaning your blades with is H42. You can look it up, Google it, H42. It comes in different sizes. The bottle is a little pricey, but a little bit goes a long way. Especially with the coronavirus and stuff going on, it's a great way to disinfect your blades. If you'll let them set over there, it takes about 10 minutes to be fully effective. But if you did it between grooms or something, it's a good way to disinfect your blades.
Where can they get the H42 at?
Google H42. A lot of retailers sell it. Yeah. Anybody that sells any kind of
any of the pet stuff,
any pet or barber supply store will have H42.
Sweet.
I should have brought a bottle to show you guys. So
we'll have more of these.
The results I listed on here, the results of not oiling. So when you don't oil your blade, the heat causes tension. It causes your blades to seize up, which will cause your blade drives to wear out faster. The extra tension due to the lack of oil will also cause extra wear and strain on your motor and cause your motor to heat up. And on the newer clipper blades like the Andis cordless, a lot of the newer cordless clippers have an emergency shut off, so that if the clipper blade tension is too tight, that it will shut the clipper off and it won't run, and you'll think your clipper's broke, but it's just that the tension. And that sometimes it's because the tension is set too high on your clipper, on your blade, but sometimes it's just for lack of oil.
Okay.
So the blade won't move fast enough.
My clippers have actually done that. I'll be busy during the day and it'll just seize up on me. I'm like, what did I do? Yeah,
it's.
I think that's in one of my videos actually.
The tension is getting too high because of lack of oil. Also, that brings me to tension issues. So most blades need to be set between 2.5 to 3.5 pounds of tension. Sometimes you'll get it back from the sharpener, and if you have especially if you have one of the newer clippers, it'll shut off after you started running for a minute. Or if you have an older clipper that's not a cordless, your blades will get really hot really fast. That's because the tension is too high. A lot of the sharpeners use this tool right here. It's called a blade scale, and it has a little. You can't hardly see it there, but it has a tension there. This blade is at about 2 3/4. This is one of the blades I did for Jessica. You want it between there, and I like to keep it around the 3-pound range. Too little tension will cause the blades to drag in hair. There's not enough tension on the blades. Too high of a tension point will either stop your cordlesses from working, or it'll build up extreme heat, and it'll heat up your blade really fast. You don't have to buy one of these fancy scales. That's like $65.
It's heavy.
You can get any kitchen scale, those little plastic kitchen scales from Walmart work just as well. If your blades are too loose, there is a way to, or too tight, there is a way to tighten them. I don't generally show people that because once they become too loose, then your sharpener has to be the one to readjust them because they won't work right if they're too loose. So if your blades are too tight, talk to your sharpener, tell him that's the issue, and make sure he corrects that and sets the proper tension on them. Because you can go down a rabbit hole, whatever, trying to adjust the tension on your blades if you don't have the proper scale and the proper equipment to do that with. So your sharpener should be taking care of that for you. Let's see, cleaning. The easiest way to clean your clipper blades is to get like a toothbrush, and if you will slide the blade to the side, not all the way out, just to the side, and you can brush out this area, and then you can slide it to the other side, and you can brush out the other side. You can also take, if you buy the cans of forced air, like for you using computers, you take that, you can also blow it out, or even your HP dryer, your force dryers, just blow them out and use H42 or oil at the end of the day. and it's a good way to clean them. You can use ultrasonic cleaners. A lot of people use those. I have some in the shop for really, really dirty blades. If you use an ultrasonic cleaner, just know that it strips everything off the blades. So you need to oil. Make sure you oil and dry them. Slide it out, dry it out really good, and reapply oil before you store them. If not, you'll come back to a seized up blade.
How often should they be cleaning them?
So here's the big thing about cleaning. And I don't know what, I'm not a groomer. I only see the end result. So I see all kinds of gunk, and I don't know if it's from doing the potty trails or product. But I would clean them at the end of each day. If you want that's what my recommendation.
Make them last longer.
Whether you do that or not, I mean, that's what I recommend. The big thing is if you'll keep the hair cleaned out between them when you oil. So when you oil, if the hair is caked up between the blades, it acts like a wick and it draws the oil away from the cutting surface. So it's like you're not even oiling the blades at all. So I just clean daily. Easiest thing in the world, just take your force dryer and blow them off once a day. That's a real easy way to do it.
I do that with my clippers too.
Yeah.
When there's hair down inside there, I take the force dryer.
Absolutely. So let's talk about worn out blades. Now, when I get a blade, and when I say worn out, I'm talking about these rails, and that's why I picked this black blade here. So you can see the rails. As a matter of fact, we're going to do what I've seen other people do before. You pull it too far out to the side, what comes out. We'll address that in a second. But if you will look, see that? Oh, this is backwards. I can't see what I'm pointing at. You see this shiny line right here and the shiny line up top? Those are called the rails, the front and the back rails. When those get worn out and those are flat and it has been ground down because they've been sharpened 100 times or whatever, it's time to replace your blade, because once those are gone, your blade creates too much heat and friction and it won't function properly. A sharpener shouldn't be giving you back blades that don't have rails on them, because I can't guarantee that they work anymore. So when those rails are gone and get too low, it's time to replace your blade. So you saw what I did here. A quick question here. Hold on.
I'll tight. You can finish
Okay.
real quick if you want to turn them on.
Okay. So has this ever happened to anybody? You accidentally push out the blade to the edge of the side?
Yes.
Now there's a way to this. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. One, this is the shortcut. So if you'll take this little plastic guide off, this one right here just happens to be red, but they can be black or
White.
Some are white and black. I have all kinds of rainbow colors of them. But so we take that off. Let me see if I can show this here. If you'll put the edge of it, the little groove, you see that groove there? If it'll focus or not. There's a groove in the edge of that. If you will put that in the edge of the comb here, let me get it started and I'll show you. You'll get it started like that, kind of wedged in there. And then if you'll take your cutter, and there's that little groove in the cutter, if you will slide that in, I can show that, like that.
Pull it out
And it slides it back in there for you. The blade's reassembled. That's the way to do it without any tools. But to do it with a tool, hold on, let me get my screwdriver here real quick. All right, you'll have to.
What's wrong? You need a screwdriver?
I got one.
Okay.
So if you want to hold the camera up here and show them this.
Yep.
Okay, so you'll have to take it apart. Now, this will give you a chance to show you the anatomy of the blade too. Take one screw out, the other screw out. Okay, so let's say this came off. So just a real quick blade anatomy. This is your blade guide. This is your blade spring. This is called a socket. Screws right here that I just knocked all over the place. And this is your cutter, and this is the comb. So to reassemble, you put the blade guide back on the spring. You put the socket in like this with the little ears. Go through it top, and it just slides down like that. Put the cutter blade back on the comb. We set the spring on like that, and we slide it to the edge of the table. Well, that one don't have an edge. And then we clip it like that. And if you can see that lined up the hole, what if I show it there? Kind of line up the holes between the spring and the socket and the cutter comb. We'll get a screwdriver. And if you watch this afterwards, you can always go back once it's saved and rewind and
Like trying to stay in.
Yeah. I'm showing it right. Just put those screws back in there. Okay. Tighten it, then take it back a quarter turn because you want to be able to adjust this side and get it lined up. I've done this enough, it's automatically pretty much lined up when I do it. But that's how you put those back together. All right. Somebody have a question?
All right. So we got Carol Wilson.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Carol.
Hey, Carol. Happy birthday.
And she says, why do wide blades seem to wreck the blade drive on my Heinegers quicker than the usual size blades?
That's
Is
a
it the
good
weight?
question. Because the wide blade doesn't have a wide spring, it uses the same size spring as a normal blade. So in order to put enough tension on a blade that's 50% bigger, we have to put more tension on that spring. We have to over tension it to get the proper tension across the width of that of the blade. So with more tension comes more friction, which is extra wear on your blade drives and motor. Now, the best thing you can do for that is to constantly oil your blades. Keep them lubricated. That makes, especially with wide blades, they will heat up, and once they get hot, the blade gets really hot, the oil runs away from heat. Imagine having a hot pan and you put a little water or even oil in a hot pan. You notice how it goes to the side real quick? Same thing when your blades get real hot, you put oil on them, it runs away from them. So keep them oiled so they don't get hot and don't build up extra tension. But that's a long way of saying that we just have to put extra tension. That's why they wreck your blade drives faster.
I do love my wide blades though. They make my job so much faster.
Hey, they cut your, it's 50% bigger,
Right.
so it cuts your, it cuts at least a third of your time down and shave down.
Hi, Sweden.
Hey, Sweden, right
All
on.
I got a question.
Okay.
Did you groom puppies? So all of my puppies, I say you should bring them in as soon as you can. Let me turn it this way. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to share a camera.
Go ahead.
As soon as they have all of their puppy shots, definitely get them started. And at home, you can mess with their feet. You can, if you have something that vibrates, rubbing it on their body, giving them treats when they behave, all of that, it works really well. It'll help us out, especially if they're high maintenance dogs.
Cool.
All right, Jessie, back to you.
All right. Well, let's say, unless anybody has any more questions about oiling or anything like that, I am going to talk about.
Carol said, "Thank you for the explanation."
You're welcome. Groomer equipment maintenance is so important. I know it's one thing they don't teach most groomers in school, in grooming school, and home groomers, of course, don't even have that much access. So it's a great way to that's my mission, is to educate groomers. Makes my job easier, makes yours easier, makes you more money and less frustrated. So blade drives and blade levers. Okay, first, everybody uses the term blade drive. The only manufacturer that uses a blade drive is Andis. This is an Andis blade drive. Everyone else uses what they call levers. Everybody uses the term blade drive universally, but this is an Andis blade drive. So let's see. I'm going to show you the different blade drives. This, if you have an Andis, any kind of Andis clipper, this is the blade drive that it uses. This is the Andis blade drive. Now then, if you use an old school Oster A5, which usually only vets use those anymore, but that's the blade lever for that one. If you use an Oster A6, that's the blade lever for that one. Now, what's real big now, it used to be Andis was the #1 clipper, but I'm seeing a lot of the cordless clippers, and one that's really big on the rise is the Heinegger Sapphire.
I just bought those, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
These are the #1 cordless clipper that I recommend, simply because these are the ones that I see in the least for maintenance. So that's the ones I see the least means are the ones that are having the least issues that need to be corrected.
Blade drives. Where can they get blade drives from?
For which clipper?
Any of them. I think the only blade drives I've seen in like the few groomer magazines I have is like for the Andis.
Okay, so for the Andis ones, Google for everything. Amazon. Shameless plug. SharpEdgesOK.com. I sell all these blade levers. These right here, I sell it for like $7 online or something. You have to be careful when you buy these. There's a lot of, especially with the Andis, there's a lot of aftermarket cheap ones. If you'll notice the new Andis ones, if you can see that how the corners on these are rounded, you'll see a lot of them that are square cornered, or even they have a little steel bar across the top. Andis hasn't made one with the steel bar in 4 years, unless it's really, really old new stock, which you don't see at this point. It's probably fake. There's a lot of counterfeit blade drives out there. Here's the Wall. This is for the Wall KM clippers. The KM5, KM10, and the KM cordless all use this blade lever. The Heinegger Sapphire and the Oster Volt, which basically are the same clipper, use this blade lever right here. And the new
Wait, you said the Heiniger Sapphire and the Oster what?
Osterbolt.
They're like the same clip.
They have the same motor and the same blade lever.
Oh,
Yeah.
see? I didn't know
So
that either.
if you have a Heiniger and if you Google Heiniger and can't find a part, Google Sapphire. Same thing with the hinges and the motors and the drives of this are this right here. And this is the new Opal, Heiniger Opal. It's like the Sapphire, but it's 2-speed. It's got a completely different blade lever in it. Yeah, and you can Google them. I'll tell you right now, a lot of places are back ordered on parts and stuff. I order my stuff from Fort Worth Shaver. I also have them on my website, sharpedgesok.com. I can have all the blade stuff.
Don't forget to use graffiti.
And yeah, if you use Graffiti Grooming on all shear orders, actually let me put it on all orders. You get 10% off of any order at Graffiti Grooming if you enter graffiti as a coupon code at sharpedgesok.com. I have it set to just shears from the former special, but I'm going to change it to all products.
Here's a question.
Yep.
It's like for me, for example, when my blades get worn out or say they break and they chip, I always keep them for parts. Is that okay to do? Is that good or bad?
Yeah. What I recommend to everybody is donate broken clippers to your sharpener.
Okay.
Because
well, I'll give you a bag of them.
Cutters,
when we're done here because I got some.
Cutters, I think, cost $5 to $7 if I have to put a new one in. But when customers give me their broken, it has broken cones, well, I take those cutters and I give them to somebody else for free if theirs is worn out. So I just kind of share the love on that. It's any parts that I can reuse.
We love that.
Like these springs cost over $1 and stuff now. So anytime I can give those out free, it's better for everybody. So real quick, let's go through some. We're going to change some blade levers for you folks that aren't familiar with how to change the blade levers on yours. Okay. We will start with the Heiniger Sapphire, and I have one right here. And I'm going to need Miss Jessica to.
Cece, we will come back to you in just a minute. He does do scissors.
Yeah, we're going to get down to scissors after we get done with the clipper stuff.
All right.
Okay. So this is the Heiniger Sapphire blade lever change. Make sure. So first we'll take the battery out. And then there are 6 body screws. 6 screws here in the body. Let me
try to keep it steady.
On high speed here.
Not focusing very well. There we go. It's a little bit better.
And yes, this makes all the difference in the world when you have a cordless screwdriver to do this with.
And it's magnetic.
Yeah.
Winning. Winner, chicken dinner.
So when I first started, I wasn't smart enough to get one of these, so I have to do all this by hand. Let me tell you something. It'll also wear your hand out quick if you got several of these to repair.
I changed my blade drive once by myself. I'll gladly pay the money. Thank you, but no thank you.
And then when you're changing the blade lever on this, you also have to take out the hinge screws.
Let's see if I put it. You guys bear with me. I'm trying to.
On the Heiniger Sapphire, when you take off this hinge, you need to have this closed because this has a really particular spring system you have to mess with. If not, it won't come off right. All right. So, and don't forget the little one. There's a little one that comes in the bottom right there, which I already took outward. No, I didn't. Did you not have that in there?
I don't know. I just got them. Remember?
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So.
I didn't see you take it out.
No, it didn't. It's supposed to have. Most of them will have a little bitty short screw goes in that hole right down there under the battery. So it should have 7 screws to it.
Well, I miss a screw now. What do we do if we lose a screw? That's a good question too.
Ask your sharpener. And if we have I have the long
screw. My 7th screw.
I have the long ones. I don't know if having the short ones. Okay. Yeah, parts have been really hard to get for a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
That should be all right for the time being, though. So we turn it over. We take it out. We take the top off like this.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that's good.
Yeah. So you take off this plastic piece right here. Kind of helps to keep hair out of there. Supposed to. Now then, we take our flathead screwdriver.
Try to.
Let's see here.
Keep it in the.
Yeah.
There we go.
So.
Wait, hold on. I might be able to fix this. We'll put it right here.
There you go. All right.
Now you got a better view.
So we're gonna. It says a blade lever. This is the blade lever right here. This is a little foam piece that keeps the hair from getting down inside the clipper. To get this off, just take a flat-headed screwdriver, put it in there, and just kind of pry it straight up. It'll come off like that. Take this foam piece off. Save this. Don't lose this, because I have in 3 years I haven't been able to get that part So you don't want to lose those.
It's just a little piece of foam and it's hard to get.
Yeah, well, I mean, now I have jerry rigged some because you can't really get that far.
Right.
But anyways, so there's the old one off. You notice there's a lot of grease over it. I forgot to bring my grease that I usually put. You can use you can go on Amazon and order Super Lube or Oster gear grease. And so when I come here next, I'm gonna make sure I'm bringing some extra oil. I mean some grease. But usually you put a little grease around this bearing right here and around this post. Anyways, and you put this foam piece back on with your new lever.
Don't forget the foam piece.
Don't forget the foam piece. That's where it keeps the hair out.
That's right.
And we put it right over the little slot there, and we line this up and set it down on there. And you would also put a dab of grease right here. Where you see this? This still has some fresh grease right there, but normally you put a little dab of grease there. And that is all there is to it. You put back this little plastic piece. It sits on two little pins here on the corner. Can't miss it. And that's all there is to that. Now, usually what you'll want to do is you'll blow out any hair over here, and you'll wipe off these connections right here to make sure you're getting a good connection there. And usually I have my air compressor to blow all that out. And you use your force dryer. Set that back on, turn it over, go to town. Put your screws back in.
Heck yeah. He makes it look so easy. All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to find us another question.
Anyway, and then you put make sure this stays closed as you put this hinge back on. Wait a minute.
Hold on. Let me take that off so they can see better. I'll have to put it back down.
Oh. Anyway.
All right.
So we're going to put this back on, and then I'll put the rest. I'll reassemble this fully when we're so we can get on to the next one here. I'm just going to put this screw back in real quick.
I'm going to try to fix this. And then, so Graffiti Grooming, I want to ask is, have you planned a live stream, like a whole day in the life of a groomer? Yes, thank you, Mary Beth, for introducing me to all of you guys and helping me out with YouTube. That's awesome. I have not decided if I want to do a live stream. I've watched someone else do an 8-hour day, and it's really hard to set the camera up right. So I might do like one groom if I can get a camera. I'll figure out how to set this little camera I have up. I might do one live for you guys, and if it works out, maybe go from there. But we're going to have other things in the works, too. We're going to have more live learning things like the blades. We're going to have, what are we doing?
Clipper repair.
Yeah.
Cord replacements. We can go over changing dryers, changing brushes in your force dryers. Do all that.
And then you guys keep in the comments about what kind of videos you want to see, and I will try my best to make them happen. Any special discounts today? LOL.
At sharpedge.com, yes, sir. You go put in graffiti in the coupon code, you get 10% off.
10%. Oh, I thought it was 5. Oh, my bad, guys. It's 10%. I gotta go fix that.
No, you had an additional 5% on top for Christmas sale. There was 20% off. You got an additional 5% of 25.
My bad, y'all.
Now it's 10% off.
What's the best way to sharpen scissors? And Jessica, if you have a dog with black nails and you can't see the quicks and don't have a Dremel, how do you cut their nails without hitting the quick? That is something I actually have to have a dog to show you. There's a line underneath their fingernail that you can tell where their quick starts and doesn't start. Excuse me. I have some dogs at home with black fingernails, so the next time we do a live, I'll make sure to bring them up and show y'all. Or make a little quick video out of it maybe tomorrow.
I'm not sure what Kathy means by what's the best way to sharpen scissors. I personally use a flat hone. Some people use a bench grinder style thing called a twice as sharp. I use what they call it's called a Kotoku flat hone. It's a Japanese style scissor sharpening machine. Just produces a different edge, which we'll get into when we get into the scissor section there. So real quick, I wanted to show this is probably the simplest blade drive there is to change, which is the Andis blade drive. All Andis clippers have the same hinge and the same blade drive. And I did not bring my number one screwdriver. You have a little bitty screwdriver? Do a bucket
I
of
got
tools.
a couple of them. Will any of those work?
Those are all too big? Yep, I don't. That's as small as I have is that little one.
I don't know if I brought it. It's mine. It's right in my work. Let's see if this will work. So, yeah, this will work. So they're really pretty simple to change. Just take out these blade drive screws. This is a number 1, so your regular size screwdriver number 2 won't work. You need a number 1 Phillips to get these screws out. Take those out, and then you pop. Now you don't have to. Technically, you don't have to take the hinge off to change the blade drive. I do, because that allows me to clean underneath here and get all that dirt, built up hair.
Yeah, don't judge. Those are my
Yeah,
clippers.
that's fine.
Those are totally
Now pop
mine.
this off, blow it out, get all the hair out real good. When you're doing that, do not lose this piece. It's called the lock keeper, and it goes underneath here, underneath the hinge itself. So when you get a new Andis blade drive, they're pretty stiff out of the package. So what I like to do is spread them out like this. We can see that.
I didn't feel like that either.
Yeah, if not, they'll be real loud when you put them on. To do that, it kind of stretches them a little bit, makes it where it's not as loud. All right, then when you set it back on, it kind of has to snap into place. It has 2 little pins. I don't know if you can see the 2 little pinholes there that it sets on. You just pop that back in place and make sure it's seated properly. The most important thing when you're installing Andis blade drives is when you put these screws back in, you have to be careful not to over tighten them. Get the frame there. Put that in there. And once you get it, you turn it till it's snug, and then give it a quarter turn and stop.
So when you do the quarter turn, you're going backwards, right?
No, on this one, unlike the blade with the quarter backwards, this right here is once you get it to the point where you feel it gets snug, then go 1 more quarter turn in that direction.
Okay.
Don't go more than that, because you're actually not screwing into the plastic body, you're screwing into some little brass pieces, and if you screw too hard, you pull the brass pieces up and it strips it out.
Gotcha.
Then yes, top part of the motor has to be replaced, which requires placing the whole motor in these. Right. Or if your sharpener is smart, he's been saving those off old ones. Then just put your hinge back on. Over your hinge back on there. Yeah, it's going backwards, so I keep going out of frame, not realizing I'm going backwards. Anyways, you put this back in here. And then you want to test your hinge. And probably we should have actually did that before we took it off. That's what I normally do. Is you want to test your hinge. If you can pull your hinge up at all with your fingers, then that means that hinge is shot. And a loose hinge will keep your blades. If the hinge is loose, your blades will rattle, and they may pick up as you're going through the hair and disengage. They won't cut. Anyways, and then just put your flathead under there, and it should take some effort to get it up. It should be nice and tight. All right, that's it for the Andis. And then one other one we wanted to show you real quick is the KM clippers, wall KM clippers. This could be the KM5, the KM10, or the wall cordless. Let's put this down here. All right. So, and I should have mentioned this on the other one. On the Heiniger, this and the Heiniger both take if you can see that, a Torx bit. This isn't a regular screwdriver. This is what they call a star bit or a Torx bit. This is a T10. So it has 3 screws in the body. Unscrew those. I'll get in there. There we go. That one out. Everybody's gonna come back and have fresh blade drives, and then I don't know what to do. Turn it back face up, and pop the top off here. Also, with these right here, you always want to make sure to clean off these connections. Anytime you have any of these cordless clippers apart, I usually blow them off or wipe off these connections, so you make sure you're keeping a good connection there. These same thing like with the Heinigers, you just pry this underneath here. There's no other little pieces, no rubber pieces that doesn't take off. You just pop that off straight up like that. No can there.
Oh no.
You normally take your force dryer or canned air and blow out all the hair right here. There's that old one, and we're going to pop a new one on here. Keep it from rolling over here. And once again, I did forget to bring the grease, but normally I grease this up.
You're as bad as me.
I know. I was going through my trailer, picking stuff up to bring in here, and then I forgot to bring that, of course. Just slides down over this little post right here, if you can see that. Sorry, I'm not giving a very good demonstration, guys.
It's not bad. I keep shaking, so I can't really hold it. So I keep trying to.
So normally I would put grease underneath here, and grease on the edges of these two little yoke pieces here. And this is what moves back and forth. So that's all it is. It's really pretty simple. What I like to do, and this, I don't know if you guys can see this, but do you see that little green piece right there? That's what plugs into the board from the cord. That's the end of the cord that plugs into that board. If you'll notice, you see how it's not quite seated on that board. A lot of times with the KM5s and 10s, you'll think your cord is bad because it'll short out, keep stopping, but it's because that little green piece has kind of worked its way off the pegs it attaches to. So what I'll do is I'll just take this, and now if you can see me do this, I kind of push down with the little screwdriver right there and kind of push it up tight on the board again. You can see that?
Yeah.
And now it's pushed down tight there. So anyways, a little extra advice there.
Winning.
So we'll put this back on. Oh, and when you do this, don't do like I always do and forget to put this piece back on, which is what they call the bail hanger. This is for hanging your clippers. And that reminds me, you don't happen to have a zip tie, do you? I meant to bring a zip tie to start by a little trick for saving your cords.
No. I don't know.
Well, if she happens to have a zip tie trick, there's one I can show you to help extend the life of your cord if you have a clippered cord. Get the screw back in here. There we go. All right. So there's the clippers corded. Oh, but if she didn't have one, that's fine. Here's the trick, the little tip. I would say, and this goes for any corded clipper. Most of them come with this little, what they call bail hanger here. So when cords give out, it's almost always right here where it enters the clipper because it's constantly getting, moved back and forth like that. So if you will take a zip tie and zip tie this bail hanger to your cord right there, a zip tie right there, it keeps that from bending right there as it goes in the clipper, cool. And it extends the life of your clipper. This little tip.
The first thing that happens is they get loose and then they fall off.
Yep. All right. So anybody have any questions before we move on?
We got lots of highs, so say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate this and hope that somebody's learning something.
Kayla said, well, that looks simple and easy to do. It really isn't. I promise I've tried.
Well, it helps if you've done it a few times. But if you have your own cord, if your cord gives out and your sharpener's not around, it won't. He just left the shop a week ago and he's not going to be there for a while. It's something, it's helpful to be able to know how to do is change your cord. Most cord changes are relatively easy. And we'll do cord changes in another video, but definitely your blade drives and stuff is something you can learn to do because it's important to, sometimes I'll get calls. People say, those blades you just sharpened ain't working. And I'll go back and I'll take them out and try them on my clippers. They're fine. Yeah. So I said, and this is why I try to remember before I leave the shop, hey, let me look at your clippers. So I'll go in and look and see if your clippers is wore, because if the clipper blade or clipper lever, blade lever or blade driver, blade lever gets wore down, it can't make the full stroke to move the blade. And so you'll start seeing lines or the blades will drag. That's another sign that your blade drive can be worn out.
I was going to say, we should have shown them what it sounds like, because there's a distinct sound that it has when it starts to go out. It gets louder.
Oh, it gets louder. Yeah. Also, also another thing with loud clippers, if you'll take especially on Andis, I'll see a lot of times is his 2 little blade drive screws. If one of those falls out, your clipper will vibrate and shake and get really loud. There's a lot of different. If the sockets on your clipper blade, these little wing ears right here, if those are bent out too much, that'll rattle and make a lot of noise on your clipper blade. There's several different things like that can make your clippers loud. So
what if you? Okay, so I do have a question.
Yeah.
As a groomer, sometimes we have backups, sometimes we don't.
Mm-hmm.
If we drop them and they need to be, say they're loose, so they're making like that weird rattling sound. Is there anything we can do to?
like the blades.
No, the actual clipper itself, like this.
Okay, so like I said, loud
my
rep.
KMs, I've dropped them, and they split apart, and I couldn't get them to come back together. So I was like trying to figure out a way to hold them together so I could finish grooving for the day. You got any tricks for that? I know that sounds ridiculous, but as a groomer, it does happen. Dogs will donkey kick your clippers off the table.
Absolutely. Because that is such an open-ended question, I'd say get your sharpener. Because I mean, obviously putting it back, putting the screws, but and I should have showed you on the KM there, it has little rubber motor mounts that kind of cushion it when it's together, and if those come out of place or fall out
So
or
take
rot,
the screws out and try to screw it back in.
yeah, just put the screw. Yeah, it just look at it, and then if you can put it back together and screw it in, that's the best thing you can do. Because there's so many different things that could go wrong, but if everything's in the right place, screwing it back together will work. Although if it came apart, chances are the screws are stripped or the where they screw into the clipper is broke, and that's why they come apart in the first place. So you may need a new case at that point. Okay. So let's see what we got next. Hinges. We talked a little bit about hinges. So I recommend getting your hinges replaced once a year. If you a medium to high volume groomer, this is a wear part that you replace like you do blade drives, not nearly as often. But that's another thing. You're talking about loud clippers. A lot of times it's your hinge.
Okay.
I did not know that. It may seem tight, but that's why I can say if you can move it all with your fingernails, then it's definitely time to replace it because that will cause it to be loud, and that's one of the most irritating noises.
The blades will slip off too.
Absolutely. Also, your blade drive screws. Check those periodically. Tighten them. Make sure they're good in there tight. Proper working hinge, and also I should have brought a separate latch here, but I don't know if you can tell, but if I'm showing it the right way, there's a hook.
Yeah, you can kind of see it.
There's a hook. It's called this is what you're pushing. That's the thing that moves. You see that moving piece? That's the blade latch. That has a hook on it that holds, actually grabs and holds the clipper, the clipper blade. If that gets broke off, your blades will rattle. And when you're going through thick fur in a dog, your blades will pop off. So it's, again, replacing your hinge once a year is what I recommend. The KM model clippers are particularly bad about their hinges are being weak. And I see them replaced a lot more often, sometimes a couple times a year. Consequently, they're about half the price of the hinges on these. I don't know if there's any correlation to that or not, but all right. Anybody have any other questions?
As of right now,
okay.
Someone asked how you were doing today.
I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is exciting. I enjoy doing this. I like sharing information and educating people. So I'm going to talk real quick about cords in general. Another time we'll do, we can do one on changing different cords on clippers if anybody's interested. Right now, I'll just talk about how to check your cords to make sure they're in good shape. Like I said, right here is where most commonly cords will give out. We got a plug in right here. Yeah, right there. Yeah, right there. So, and we may find this one needs a cord. We'll find out.
Those are my oldest pair I have, so there might be all kinds of things wrong with it. Those are also the ones I've dropped several times.
No, the dog kicked them off.
Oh, yeah, that too. That too. There's lots of them.
It's always the reason. The dog kicked it off the table. Okay.
Kicked them out of my hand.
Still running pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So the way you check your cord if you're having issues is, number one, pull down straight. Now, don't act like you're trying to save your car from save your child from a trapped car or nothing, but give it a good yank, and if you hear it stop or sputter, or if you twist it like this and you hear a stop or you start stutters, that means your cord's bad. This one, the cord's in good shape, it sounds like. Yay. And that works on all corded clippers. If you do that, that's a good way to check them. If you have an issue with it, you want to verify whether it's the cord or not, that's a good way to test it. That's the first thing I do as a sharpener to troubleshoot a clipper when somebody says it's not running right, is I check the cord. Or anytime I do any kind of maintenance, so if you check the blade drive, automatically just check that. we did the ball. So let's if anybody has any more clipper questions, we'll talk about shears.
That was what they were waiting for. Wow,
Yeah.
I know a few of them were.
Okay. So oiling with shears. People talk about oiling with shears.
Oh, this is a good one.
Can you have
Oh,
one?
yeah, they're right here. I just found
Either
them.
one of them.
Didn't know if they were going to be in your way or not.
No. These just all happen to be
They're
gem
all
shears.
gems. Duh. Those are my favorite.
So people ask about oiling shears, and when we sell new shears, they actually come with a bottle of oil. So it's kind of a mixed answer question. That there's nothing wrong with oiling your shears. I personally don't oil shears or recommend oiling them, only because, and not that it's bad for your shear. Anyway, it's not. Except that I notice, from my perspective, shears don't get cleaned every day. So what happens is oil. Now, if you oil, now first I'll show you how to oil. If you're going to oil, the way to do it, and it's really simple, is you see this, we call this area right back here the J. And what you do is you just put a drop of oil right there on that J, kind of rub it around, and open and close the shears. There, your shear is oiled. Some people like to wipe it along the edge. I find that you end up cutting yourself more than anything when you do that. And that will make it seem a little smoother for a minute. But what I have found, and this is because every time I sharpen the shear, I take it apart and I'm looking inside, is that oil attracts dirt. And that dirt gets up in the pivot area. And two things it'll do is, one is it'll cause extra wear on that J part, that shiny part that makes the shears real smooth, open and closed. And that grit gets in there and it kind of roughs that up. But it can also get between the two blades around the pivot area, and which can eat away at the hardware inside there. Nothing wrong with doing it, but if you are going to oil your shears, if you like the way they feel oiled better, you have to meticulously clean your shears daily to keep buildup of gunk there if you want to keep them operating properly. If you don't want to do that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with oiling your shears. Either way, you should wipe your shears down at the end of the day to keep them feeling smooth. And I'm not a groomer, so I don't know what you guys use a lot of nail polish. I always see it looks like colored glue or something. Is it nail polish, or I see glue on them sometimes?
Could be some product.
Some kind of product. Wipe that off, because what I'll get a lot of times is there'll be some product, whatever it is, and it gets on the inside there. So when your shear closes, it kind of pushes the shear apart right there where it's at, and they'll think the shear is dull, but it's not that. It's just folding the hair because you got that buildup of product on the inside. So you just continually wipe down your shears. Easiest way to clean them. You don't want any moisture trapped between the shear, which will cause rust. So what I do, I have a spray bottle of alcohol. I just spray it off with alcohol and take a cloth and wipe it down, microfiber cloth, paper towel, whatever, and wipe it down. They're really easy to take care of in that way. Tension. Go ahead.
Are there any difference between cleaning the chunkers or?
Same thing with chunkers, thinners, all that stuff. You just want, and if you get stuff built up in between, you can take a toothbrush in between the teeth on any kind of thinners you may have. You take a toothbrush cleaner to keep it built up from in there. Tension. So.
Yeah, this is my favorite one right here.
So tension is important on shears because if they're too loose, like I'll give you a demonstration. If they're too loose, if you open them and they slam shut, or they're too loose like that, then when the blades are loose like that, you'll hear the rattle here. Well, as you go to close it and cut into thick hair, it'll push the blades apart and it'll cause it to fold hair instead of cutting it. If it's too tight, where you open it, especially on these, if you open it and it just stays like that, that's too tight. And what it is you're dulling your blades quicker. I see a lot of times as your blades are going dull, people will tighten it, try and get it cut better. Well, you're actually, the way that shear blades work is it's a very fine point at the edge, but the tension pushes the two edges against each other. So if you over tighten it, what happens, if you see my finger, you push down too hard, you see how it rolls? You roll that edge. And it feels dull because you tightened it too much and it rolls it. I have noticed that groomers like their shears a little looser than beauticians. Groomers do a lot more scissoring than beauticians do.
I wonder why that is, though.
What's that?
Why groomers like them more loose than
You guys do a lot more scissoring.
Oh.
When you're scissoring a doodle,
you're
scissoring a doodle this big or a head of hair this big, you're doing a lot more scissoring there. So I I like them to open and just, if it was a stylist, I'd say open and close about there. But with the groomer, I like it to open and close with just a little gap still in there. So that way, especially on curved shears, the curved shears will have, they always seem to kind of pinch a little bit towards the curve because it's the curve. So about that loose. You don't want any fatigue on your hand, especially if you're doing a lot of scissoring. So you want it loose, but you don't want it over loose or over tight, obviously. Where tension really comes into play is in your tooth shears. Any tooth shear, so it's a blender, a thinner, a blender, a chunker, any of those, you have a solid line going against a broken line. So what happens is this solid blade wants to bite into this tooth blade. And what I see a lot is that people will have these shears as loose as they do their regular straight bladed shears. And when these are loose, you see that wiggle like that? Well, that causes this blade to bite into this one. That's how you get those little nicks. And you'll go to close it and it'll catch it. It won't close. So what I recommend with any kind of tooth shear is you want to be able to open it and it stay open, but not with, it doesn't take any force to close. But you're at that point where if you open it, then if you'll notice, you remove most of that wiggle. There's not much of that wiggle that was in there before. So these blades are a lot less likely to bite into each other. But you don't want it so tight that it hurts your hand if you're having to do a lot of scissoring with them, you're doing a lot of thinning with them.
There's some big noodles.
Yeah. Now, finger sizes. What do you do with all the finger sizes that came in these?
They're in the boxes. My fingers are too fat, y'all.
We're going to talk about sizing your shears. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. We're going to talk about finger sizers, finger inserts, whatever we call them. It's really important. What's really important is you want to make sure that the shears are fitting your hands properly. I'm like her. I got big fingers, so I don't really need the finger inserts. But when you're scissoring, you see where my thumb is. You know, it's just the tip of it's in there. When I'm going up and down, I'm not putting pressure anywhere but straight up and straight down. When my thumb's in there too far, which I can show you on one of these shears a little better. If my thumb's in there too far like that, or some people go all the way up to the knuckle with it when the finger holes are too big. Well, what that does is you're pushing sideways, which pushes this blade into this blade. And you're causing, number one, extra strain on your hand and your wrist, but you're also dulling your shears quicker by putting that side pressure, which is
a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
It's a different brand, they're Gators.
Yeah. Yeah, which, yeah, it's not really about the same as that one. But yeah, when your fingers in there too far, also on any tooth shear, like these chunkers here, these lovely gem chunkers.
We love our gems.
Yeah. Now, I see how my thumb is just barely in the corner. If my thumb was pushing through like this, then what would be happening is I would be pushing this solid blade into these broken spots, the broken line of the tooth blade. So it's real important to keep neutral pressure, especially when you're using a tooth shear. Also, once you get, it feels uncomfortable until you get used to it. I'll admit, I've had people tell me, but it does preserve the edge of your blade and your hand and your wrist a lot when you do that.
Subtle is a thing when you're a groomer.
And if you're really trying to scissor fast, it's a lot easier to do when you don't have your whole thumb in there. You just have the side of your finger in there. Let's see. And so what you want to do is your sharpener, who you buy your shears from, they should come with some. Some will come with these little thin finger rings like this. But if you have really small fingers, you might need to have these big squishy gel ones. And sometimes you need, if you have really, really small fingers, you need the hard plastic ones and the squishy silicone ones in with them for people with really small thumbs and fingers. Okay. Question there. If the scissors blades were to get rusty, what can we do to clean them? Okay. So rust. Okay, that's a good question. On the clipper blades, well, I use a bench grinder to get them up. But what you can do at home is you can get a wire brush. And I like to use WD-40, a wire brush. Spray a little WD-40 on, take a wire brush. Usually takes it right off and just wipe it off. I like the WD-40 because it's a lubricant too, so it leaves if you use anything else, just make sure you dry it and oil it afterwards. With shears, if they get rusty, you can order online. They call it a rust eraser. I think you can get them on Amazon. They call it a rust eraser or a Scotch-Brite pad. And the same thing with WD, Scotch-Brite pad, just scrub it off. especially the Scotch Brite pad,
Blooper.
will it will scratch the surface a little bit, but it's just cosmetic. And I think the scratch is a little better than having the rust in there. That's another reason to wipe everything down at the end of the day and make sure to put oil on your blades, especially if you're a mobile groomer. That's a whole other conversation right there. Anybody else?
It's 4:00 in Florida. We love watching your videos. I'm good. I'm glad. My whole goal is just like Jessie's, to teach you guys how to groom and the best way to do it. And having the proper equipment helps be the best groomer you can be.
So we didn't mention, we're doing blades. We didn't mention 5-in-1 blades. These are becoming more and more popular. I get a lot more of these into sharpen now, and they're boogers too to sharpen. But they're definitely,
They break really easy
yeah.
too.
It's better to, huh?
I have a brand new one.
Yep.
If you want me to get
Oh,
it.
this is fine. No, I like the dirty one here. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you a little trick with your 5-in-1 blades. First things first. Most common thing I see with these is one of these tabs on the side or that little tab in the back will get broke off and they won't stay on the clipper. Good news. Most sharpeners, if we sharpen these blades, we carry the replacement plastic piece. It's like a couple bucks, and we replace that piece. So, and you can't always see it in here, but hair will get built up between the blade and the teeth here. You can either you can get compressed air with a little straw and blow it out, or another little trick we like to use. It's real easy because you don't need anything. Do you have any kind of a card, any kind of a business card? I wonder whose card that is. But if you'll take this is the piece right here. It's called the cam follower. You can see that piece right there. If you'll take and kind of push back on that, like you'll see that kind of raises that blade up.
Maybe.
I don't know if you can see that or not, but kind of raises that blade up at least a hair.
Pull it out just there. Oh, it was almost there. Go slow. Maybe. There it goes.
You know, you can see how it's raising up.
Yeah.
Do that. Take your card and push it through there. It'll clean out the debris between there. What happens with these sometimes is that, especially when it's on the shortest setting, gets a bunch of really short hair compacted in there. And what it does is it kind of pushes those blades apart. And so you'll think it's dull, but it needs to be cleaned out there. Also, it'll wick all the oil away when it's built up like that. That's one way you can clean that. Check to make sure there's that little dab of oil in there. When it comes from the factory, it'll have a white blob of grease in there. Your sharpener should be putting some more grease in there each time you sharpen those. As you can see, you happen to use a red one. I use the Oster grease, but that needs to have oil in it. If not, this part right here will get wallowed out. This cam part right here will get really wallowed out by the little metal lever here. And once that happens, it won't cut properly, no matter if you sharpen it or not. So that's also another part that we replace. It should be checked and replaced by your sharpener. But yeah, so I had somebody that was throwing these out and just buying new ones. They cost about
that.
Yeah.
I did it with a couple, and then
Yeah.
I think I finally asked you because I was like, they keep breaking.
Yeah.
I have another one that got broken.
Yeah, we can replace those parts, and new ones are like anywhere from $25 to $30. Yeah. Yep. Anywhere from 25 to make sure. No, I don't got the piece on. But yeah, we replace it next time here.
Okay.
But yeah, that part can be replaced. Don't throw them out. You can get them sharpened. Not every sharpener does them, but the ones who do, it's usually $11-12 and versus a new one, which is 25 to 30. So
I don't know about you. The ones I get are like 35 to 40.
Oh wow, yeah.
For the 5-in-1, but I get the.
Maybe I need to adjust my prices with the COVID. Everything's going up. I think I have some like 26 now, but when my prices, as long as my prices don't change, then I don't change any other price.
Right.
But when my prices change, then I have to pass along, unfortunately.
Bonnie said thank you. Kayla, you're welcome. I gotta throw my own humor in here somewhere. Gotta make it fun.
That's it.
Learning is fun.
Yay, go team.
I don't have any more questions, so whatever your next thing.
Okay. Let's talk about handle types. Two most common handle types with shears is what we call offset, and that is where the bottom hole, you see the thumb and the ring hole are offset. You see the thumb hole is offset from the finger hole, which changes the position. Now it changes the position where my thumb is when I use this. Now the other style is what we call a straight handle. So this one right here is straight underneath the finger holes and thumb hole right underneath each other. And also with the two tangs here, we call that a flip style, which means, contrary to popular belief, some people see this and they think that's a right or left-handed shear. That's not the case. That just means that you can pick it up with the curve this way, or you can pick it up with the curve this way, and you have a finger rest on either side. It's still only a right-handed shear. Real quick, I want to point that out. Show the difference between a right and a left-handed shear real quick. Because you would be surprised how often I get a groomer that says I'm left-handed and hands me a right-handed shear. Because she doesn't know the difference. Okay, so, and we'll see how well we can see this in the camera. Let me try to adjust that here. Okay. Difference between a right-handed and a left-handed shear. And this may be reversed in the video. So on this shear, if the blade that's on top, if the handle goes towards your right side, that's a right-handed shear. If the blade that is on top, if the finger hole goes towards your left arm, that's a left-handed shear. So sometimes a left-handed groomer has been using a right-handed shear, but she had to learn how to use it because she didn't have left-handed shears available, or she bought some and said, these just don't cut. That's because she's using it with the wrong hand. So it's the difference between a right and a left-handed shear. All right. Somebody has a question for you, Jessica? Oh, okay, you're fine. Oh, the shampoo? Yeah. Question about the shampoo? Okay, she got the question about shampoo.
I had to get so I can remember how to show you guys what I use. All right, so we have a couple different ones. This is the benzoyl peroxide shampoo. That's the one I use for super dandruff. Let it set for 10 to 15 minutes, rinse it off, and then it basically just goes in and cleans out.
Maybe I need to try that super dandruff shampoo.
It's like clogged pores,
right,
for a dog, so it just kind of cleans out the pores. And then this one is an antifungal, antibacterial. It works really well as well. And then Hemp has dog shampoo now that is pretty amazing, but you can't order it online. You have to go to the store to get it. Like I can only get it from PetSmart.
Huh.
So when I run out, I have to go back to PetSmart
and pay have a contract with PetSmart.
Way too much money.
Yeah. They got an exclusive contract with PetSmart.
But it's worth it if it works for my dogs.
Heck yeah. What happened?
Uh-oh. What happened? Oh, that's my phone. Someone feels like they need to call me.
Oh, it cuts off your broadcast?
Yeah. It doesn't cut it off. It's still there.
Oh.
We're still talking.
Oh, okay.
I just have to find the screen.
I didn't see myself.
I'm gonna have to put my phone on, turn it on silent. Okay. Let's make it back where your face is in there.
So, see, I guess we're at the point where we're going to start winding down. I have a couple more topics I want to go over unless somebody has any more questions.
Let's see. Jessica, yes, I gave you the name. Thank you. How or with what do you bathe an 8-week-old puppy? I mean, anything that's sensitive, make sure you keep the soap out of their eyes. You can even do, I've done like a Johnson & Johnson baby wash. Yeah. I've done that. It's really whatever you prefer to use. Just make sure that you're rinsing their eyes out really well. Yeah. And nothing with a whole bunch of perfume. Yeah. Not at first anyway. All right.
Okay. So one thing I want to talk about too, between the handle types, is edge types. There's two common edges for shears. One's what they call a convex edge, and one's what they call a bevel edge. That's a long discussion, really. I just want to say that a bevel is the most common edge used in dog grooming. All the gem shears come with a beveled edge, except the diamond. They have a polished convex edge. And what that is basically a convex is a sharper edge, but it's also a more delicate edge. Typically in dog grooming, it's used for show grooming, where a dog has been completely brushed out and rinsed and cleaned, and they're only doing and they've had the rough cuts all done, and they're only doing the finishing cuts around the head and the body. Convex edges don't do real well in the lower half of the body because the dog naturally carries more silica in their coat lower, and you're also liable to nick it on nails and stuff. It's a more delicate edge. The bevel edge is 99% of what's on most groomers' shears, in my experience. It's a hardier edge. It holds up well, and even our gem ambassador show groomers, they all use our gem shears with our bevel edge, and they work great. So your sharpener, if you want the convex edge, you usually need to tell your sharpener, make sure that he understands that's what you want. If you have a factory edge from an edge from the factory that comes convex, and that's what you want each time, you need to communicate that to your sharpener. A good sharpener will put a bevel on it that will last you a little longer. It'll be what they call a micro bevel. You can't really even notice it. It'll last you a lot longer, and it holds up better for dog grooming, especially when you're scissoring legs and around feet and stuff, which is a lot more dirt built up even after you've washed them. There's all kinds of discussions about those edges, but in my experience, 95% of grooming is done with the bevel edge. Shear quality. I kind of want to address this because I see a lot of shears that are being bought off wish.com and Amazon.
I have some Amazon ones.
Yeah. Purple Dragon, Lily's Pet, yep. King Smith, Foxy Roxy, those are all kind of the same quality level. Here's the thing. If you can buy a set of shears with 4 shears and a comb for $40, nothing wrong with that. I mean, to each their, the income level, what they can afford and what you have access to sometimes and can get delivered the next day. But those are usually made from a lower quality metal. So don't expect that edge to hold up as well as a 440C or VG10 edge.
Buy them more often.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I know
anymore.
People, because you're paying about $8 a shear for them, which is cheaper than sharpening, some people just constantly buy them. I mean, that's what you want to do. Yeah. But also, I just had the issue with some Purple Dragons. There's a curved shear, and when the set gets out, meaning when you drop it and that blade gets a little out of whack, it's pretty easy to fix on a straight shear. That's the hardest thing in sharpening is fixing set on a curved shear, because now you're trying to match 2 curves up. Mm-hmm. When they make these shears, they're flat. And then after they sharpen them, then they bend them.
Okay.
So to reestablish that when it's bent is a booger. So the cheaper the metal, the more often than likely it is to bend, and the harder it is to correct that once it happens. If you make your living with these tools, I suggest investing in good quality. That's why the Jim Bradwin came up with affordable shears for under $100 that as sharpeners, we know is good quality. We don't mind sharpening. I'm not saying you have to buy Jim shears. I mean, I love it if you did, but any good quality shear, it's best if you can buy from a reputable dealer like Kenshi or Affordable Grooming Shears or somebody, a name that's known and their products are tested. I recommend buying from your sharpener.
Yeah,
because
a lot too.
she does. You get to test them and try them out. Or at the very least, if you have to buy them offline, buy them from somebody that's reputable that has a return policy. If you're not happy with Gem Shears, we have a 30-day, no questions asked return policy. We'll exchange them or refund. So you want to make sure you do, because a lot of times when you order them offline, you don't know how it's going to feel in your hand, if you're going to like it or not. And nothing is worse than spending a bunch of money on shears that aren't any good or don't fit you. I don't want my customers to use a shear that they just set in the box and never use again. I mean, to me, I do this for the rest of my life. So I want you happy with all your purchases for me. And if not, I want to make you happy. So just thinking that when you're buying something, be careful of the really cheap shears. You get what you pay for. Having said that, I mean, some people are diehard Purple Dragon fans. Nothing wrong with that, but just, be aware of what you're getting.
Yeah, I started out with the Kings.
Yeah.
Because I could only groom like 2 or 3 dogs at a time.
Hey, yeah.
And so I had to get what I could afford, basically.
Absolutely. And hey, I'll tell you something. I'm not knocking.
I worked my way up. Yeah. I hate those scissors now. I will not touch them, but I refuse to throw them away.
I have groomers who still. This is a King Smith. King Smith and Purple Dragon and Lily's Pet are pretty much the exact same shear. When they're brand new, they're kind of nice. But it's hard to get a good, what we call this little silver line. It's easy to show on the black shears. Yeah. There's a little silver line there that we call the ride line, and that's the only part of the shear that actually touches is as those 2 places pass. That's where the shear is touching. With these shears, because of the quality of the metal, it's really hard to ever make them feel like that again. But I have people who are diehard to use, and I tell you, everybody should have a set of these for roughing in dogs, especially if you're roughing in a dirty dog. Yeah, have some of these, because if you mess them up, who cares? Right. Throw a quick edge on them the next time your sharpener is there. But don't do that with your good shears. Always have some of these. These and the little blue ones, little plastic blue handles. Everybody should have some of those because they're good for that and cutting out mats and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Each shear has its purpose and its job, Okay, well, I think that's about all the stuff I had to go over today.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, here we go. Somebody said my sharpener is amazing and always talks about the gem group on Facebook.
Right on. Who's your sharpener?
Yeah.
Oh, in the UK?
UK.
You must be talking about Ian.
I was gonna say, didn't you say there was somebody in the UK? That
Yeah,
does
you
it?
must be. Ian Barlow must be your sharpener then. Yeah, Ian's. I like Ian. He's a cool guy. He's actually the one that got us turned on to the fluffers.
Oh my god, those are my favorite.
He's the one that got us onto the fluffers there. Yeah.
Those are my favorite. I use my chunkers and I do still use my thinners, but those fluffers are just
Oh, unless you're
amazing.
talking about Graham Dunbar. It might be Graham Dunbar. He's over in the UK too.
About the gem group. All right, that's cool to know.
Yeah.
So we use kind of the same sharpeners. It's Graham. Yep.
Yep.
She said it's
Graham.
Graham.
Ta-da.
Sweet.
I love it. All right, thanks a lot, guys. If you have any more questions I haven't addressed here, you put it in the feed, and I'll go through this later and answer any questions. Also, feel free to. I'm on Facebook, Sharp Edges 01, I think is how you look it up. SharpEdgesOK.com is the website, and I have a YouTube channel which I go over a lot of maintenance stuff too, which is Sharp Edges Groomers Equipment Maintenance.
All of
anyways.
this stuff is in my videos.
Yeah, all the links are in
my
there.
videos.
Listen, I thank you for your time, guys. Thanks for having me, Jessica,
No
and
problem.
I hope somebody learned something today.
All right, you're gonna do the famous bye with me.
Oh, sure. What we doing?
You gotta do a high pitch.
Okay. What
Ready?
We doing?
Saying bye.
Oh.
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
There we go.